or recording.
This is the community issue speech called Generational Poverty. Take a second to think about what it would be like to grow up in an impoverished household. It's not easy for us to put ourselves into the shoes of those who have walked a life very different than our own. Have you ever considered what it would be like to grow up poor? I'm not talking about experiencing a period of financial difficulty, which is something many of us may have experienced. I'm talking about being born into a household that is poor and growing up with little hope for a better future. According to Eric Jensen in the article, How Poverty Affects Classroom Engagement, published in the May 2013 issue of Educational Leadership, research suggests that lower socioeconomic status is often associated with viewing the future as containing more negative events than positive ones. There are kids who are feeling helpless and stuck. There are children who live maybe 15 minutes away from us who experience an entirely different world, which inhibits their ability to function academically and to have chance for success in the future. We can help them by bridging the gap between ourselves and them by building relationships with them. Today, I would like to give you a taste of what the world of kids at Fortress Mission in Fort Worth is like, so you can see the immense need that is not far from us. Children who grow up in poverty tend to have difficulty functioning in the classroom, largely because their home life is so different than the home life of children in middle-class families or in higher-class families. In the article, Childhood Adultification in Economically Disadvantaged Families, a conceptual model from the journal Family Relations, Linda Burton writes, I suggest that some children precociously perform extensive labor in their families as a function of poverty, and that their roles, responsibilities, and behaviors may be out of sync with contemporary social and institutional notions of what children are expected to do. Now think about what it would have been like for you to grow up in a poor household where your parents are not supportive and they're not there, where you're forced to carry on adult-like responsibilities, and when you have to worry about not having the resources you need to get supplies for school. It's not easy to picture ourselves in these students' position. I would like to ask you to begin forming a connection between yourself and these children who are in need. It's so easy to separate ourselves because we're not there and we're not facing the problems that they face. When we think of poverty, oftentimes we get this picture of like an emaciated child in Africa. This picture is incomplete and distant. Part of the problem is that poor communities are oftentimes isolated. In an email interview, Stacy Coker, who is the Director of Communications and Development at Fortress Mission, asked me the shocking question. Did you know that many people who live in poverty never travel outside of their very neighborhoods? When we take the kids up to North Richland Hills, they always ask, are we still in Texas? The children Stacy works with live in Fort Worth, which is a short 20-minute drive from North Richland Hills. There's a very large gap between our communities and these poor communities that needs to be bridged. Now that our eyes have been opened to these distances, let's explore what we can do to lessen that distance. So first, let's think about how we've been blessed. We have stable families, we have loving families, we have a stable income, and we live in a safe environment where we typically don't have to worry about what it's going to be like if we have to walk to school or if we have to be out at night. Now that we're thankful for the blessings that we have, let's remember the kids who don't have any of these things. Picture yourself helping children have an opportunity to have some of the good things that you have, maybe in the future. We all have the resources and abilities to help, even in just a small way. The joy that comes from sharing blessings and bringing hope is incomparable, and there's a way for you to share them. A couple of the ways that you can help are to find a child to mentor, or if you don't have the time to do that, you could also just share some of your resources with them. So let's decide if we want to help. Let's look at the things that we've talked about first. There is a need. Children do not have resources available to them, and they're suffering in school. They're suffering to prepare themselves for a better future. There's a distance between us, who are relatively affluent, and these children who are impoverished, and that gap needs to be bridged. And we can help. When I asked Stacy Coker, who works closely with the impoverished kids at Fortress, what we can do to meet the needs of the kids, she said, what they need is people to love them, and people to talk with, and people who just love them where they're at. We all have the ability to love. In her book, A Framework for Understanding Poverty, Ruby Payne, who's an expert on the issue of generational poverty, says this: the key to achievement for students from poverty is creating relationships with them. So let us take her advice and seek to build relationships with children who are hungry, not just for food, but for life.